What's up, everybody? Are you in your 20s wondering what your savings goals should be for by the time you hit 30? Today I thought I'd talk about some of the life milestones that happen in your 20s and how you should plan to navigate those when it comes to your money. Coming up. Welcome back, everyone. My name is Sean. If you're new here, I am documenting my journey to financial freedom on this channel. I'll come out with videos every week about personal finance and other types of things related to money. So if you're into that, please subscribe. Last week, I did a video about how to save in your 20s with the 50-30-20 rule. Now, what about getting through your 20s? Now, like we said last week, 20s are an awesome and exciting time. You are traveling, you're meeting people. Maybe you're thinking about where you want to live, living downtown or living out in the burbs. So many life choices and exciting things happen in your 20s. And because you have so much time in front of you, we talked last week about how it's important to try and invest. Now, what if your situation right now doesn't really let you do the 50-30-20 rule? Well, I thought I would talk about a different way to sort of measure your financial situation as you go through your 20s, and that's by kind of talking more about life events. So we'll cover where you want to be at the end of your 20s when it comes to student loans, rings and weddings, your mortgage, and your emergency fund. Okay, so first let's talk about student loans. In my opinion, paying off your student loan should be the first priority when you get out of school. If you're also kind of just out of school and you haven't moved out yet, let's say you're still living with your parents, you have no overhead, this is when you'll be netting a lot of money, probably some of the most in your life. So before you get out and have to pay rent or pay mortgage, if you still happen to live at home, pay off your student loan as quick as you can. Make that a goal because it really is like an investment. The 8, 10, or 12% of interest that you pay on your student loans, saving that money by paying it off now is saving you that money in the future that you would pay over however many years, spreading those payments out. So definitely try to get out of your 30s with no student debt. I've got a link to how I paid off my student loans, and I'll share that right now. All right, next is wedding rings and weddings. So these are kind of big milestone events that you probably want to carve out a little money from your discretionary fund. That would be the 30% when we talked about 50-30-20. Carve out a little bit there, and again, start early. Even if you don't have a girlfriend or boyfriend right now, why not start to save up for these kind of things early in a special little piece of your savings that you can set on the side? These are also really good things to budget for. For instance, if you can save up for a wedding ring, you might want to put a couple $100 a month away. And so when you do your monthly budgets, or even if you can make an automatic withdrawal from your checking account, put it away and you'll be surprised how quickly you can save up that money. So if you're lucky enough to find a partner, have a good, maybe economically responsible type of wedding. And not go into any debt. So the goal by the time you're 30 is to not be indebted due to buying a wedding ring or paying for a wedding. My story is that when I was ready to get married, I happened to take on a temporary job where I had to work away, but that job came with an increase in pay that let me save up for a wedding, and my wife and I were able to pay for the wedding. It was also very nice that people were generous with their gifts at the wedding, so in the end we pretty much broke even and we did not have any debt by the time we were done that life milestone. Next would be your emergency fund. Now this is a tough one because everybody has a different requirement for what their emergency fund is. I did a video on this as well and I will share the link. That'll help you decide how much your emergency fund should be, and your goal by the time you get to your 30s is to have an emergency fund fully funded. So let's say in my case, it would be about 11K, or you can base your emergency fund off of other estimates or your average income. So build this up over time, but give yourself a goal. And by the time you're 30, say, I need to have X dollars in my emergency fund. And if you're able to do that, perfect. Now, the fourth and final big milestone you might hit in your 20s is a place to live. I have a video talking about when you should consider paying for a mortgage versus paying for rent. I'll link that here as well. Most likely, if you're in your 20s, you might be moving around, figuring out what you want to do for a job. You may be traveling to different cities, and you may be thinking about living downtown, but after a few years, you may be thinking that you'll move out and try to get a house. And the thing that we kind of conclude in the video is if you're still moving around, renting is best. Renting also may let you reduce your monthly costs for your living expenses if you can share that rent with a roommate. So in your 20s, pay your rent, keep your rent low, but what your goal should be is by the time you're 30, see if you can carve out a little bit of your discretionary spending or that 20% of your savings and see if you can have a down payment by the time you are 30 for, let's say, a townhouse or house, depending on what you're after. See also if you can build this up to something more than 10 or 15%. Set a goal for yourself to have a 20% down payment for that house or townhouse that you're trying to set up. If you can do that, you'll be able to take out a mortgage that's quite comfortable and set yourself up for success in your 30s that way. Hey guys, I know there's a lot of info here and I'm going through it rather quickly, but if you're finding this helpful, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below and I'm happy to discuss them and research them. Okay, so to sum up, you try to have a fully funded emergency fund, you try to have no student debt, you try to have a down payment and no debt because of a wedding or wedding ring by the time you're 30. You may not have an investment fund or savings account at that time. Of course, if you happen to start to make more money in your late 20s and it allows for you to have a bit of an investment and savings fund, do it. But let's say you're not able to, but you're able to get through these life milestones by the time you're 30 and you're out of debt, you've got these little bits of savings saved up and ready for these big purchases. You're in really good shape and ahead of most people by the time they're in their 30s. So I just wanted to make this video and let you guys know there's like another way to look at it. It's not necessarily just putting money away every month if your income doesn't allow for it. Try to think of these milestones coming up, how you're gonna navigate them, and if you can kind of avoid the landmines of debt and get to 30 without being in debt because of any of these things and ready to take on the other challenges in your life in your 30s, you'll be in great shape. I'm sure you guys could do it. Okay, so we've talked about the 50-30-20 rule. We've talked about navigating the milestones as you go through your 20s. So what is the goal by the time you're done your 20s? By the time you hit 30, what should be the goal of the amount of money that you have saved up? Well, most financial planners will tell you a healthy place to be would be having a year's worth of salary by the time you are 30. Now that depends on what your annual salary would be. If we look at statistics, the average family household being about 56K, maybe your goal is to save 50K in an account that is getting interest, maybe in an investment. By the time you're in your 30s, I think that's a very healthy goal. Of course, though, if you can do better, if you have the means, always try to put as much as you can away, especially in your 20s, because that money has the most time to grow, which we kind of talked about last week. So I hope these goals give you guys a little bit of guidance. Everybody's going to be different based on how much they make and what their goals and milestones are in life. So I do realize this doesn't fit everyone, but hopefully between this video and the last one, you're able to put together some kind of financial plan for yourself in your 20s. And I'll get into more like what you're trying to accomplish and save for each decade of your life in another video, but hopefully this one helps. So until next time, have a great week, spread the wealth, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. When it comes to your place you want to live and mortgages and your living situation, where you want to be with that, we're going to cover weddings and wedding rings and paying for a wedding. We'll cover student loan